Martha was a woman of faith who enjoyed her weekly visits to church. So when she found out that Lisa, her eldest granddaughter, had started going to church daily, she was filled with pride and joy. But as the days passed, she started to notice some odd things. She didn't know what was going on exactly, but she sensed that something was wrong. She decided that she needed to take action, and once she found out Lisa's secret, she could not believe it. She took matters into her own hands, and after some digging, she finally found out what was going on with Lisa. She gasped and her eyes widened with disbelief. How was this possible? Her eyes filled with tears as she realized the seriousness of the situation. She realized that Lisa was in grave danger. She just could not believe what she found out about her granddaughter. Lisa had kept a horrible secret from her for so long. Martha's hands trembled as she called the police. What was going on with Lisa? What secret had she kept from her family, and why did Martha call the police? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Martha was a woman of faith. She was raised in a religious household, and she grew up going to church every week. Religion was important to her, and she never expected it to lead to such a terrible discovery. Martha had tried passing her religious commitment on to her own children and grandchildren, but that proved to be more difficult than she had expected. Her children agreed to go to church with her once in every few weeks, but her grandchildren were not interested in joining her at all. Martha was a little bit disappointed in this, but she understood that times were changing and religion was not a priority anymore for the newer generations. So when Martha noticed that her eldest granddaughter, Lisa, had started going to church more often, she was overjoyed. However, as much as she would have loved to go to church together with her, she was careful not to interfere just yet. She feared that her getting too involved right away would make Lisa lose interest. So Martha relished this new development in silence. However, as time passed, she noticed something that surprised her. Lisa had started going to church not monthly or even weekly, but every single day. You see, there was something weird about Lisa. Her visits to the church had started completely out of the blue. Nobody had seen it coming. She had never expressed any interest in any kind of religion at all. If anything, she had made jokes about it or even ridiculed it, much to Grandma Martha's sorrow. And even though she was going to church every single day now, she did not behave like it at all in her daily life. She often fought with her siblings and was rude to her parents. If she went out and anyone asked her where she was going, she would only get mad and slam the door without responding to the question. She was even caught lying several times, and even though they weren't very big lies, this kind of behavior was obviously frowned upon by the church. Grandma Martha's initial excitement and pride were beginning to make room for worry and sadness. What if there was something else going on with her granddaughter? Martha knew that it wasn't necessarily her role to get involved in this, but she decided to speak to her son, Rico, anyway. As soon as she mentioned Lisa, Rico had a worried look on his face. He too was very upset with Lisa's behavior recently. Something was definitely going on with her. Over the next few days, Lisa continued going to church every day. Her parents had completely changed their attitude toward her, and they tried to be a lot more supportive, but Grandma Martha was still keeping an eye on her. All the worries that she had had about her granddaughter only became worse, and she did not even have anyone to talk to about it. But there was only one person Martha could think to talk to now that could help her: the priest. Martha had known Priest Nicholas for at least 2 decades now. She had gone to this church ever since she moved to this city 20 years ago, and Nicholas had been a faithful servant to the faith long before that. You would be lucky to have 1 or 2 people under the age of 23 at Sunday services, but Priest Nicholas always seemed to have at least 15 young adults at his talks. So Martha ended up calling the priest and asked him if she could meet up with him to discuss something. Nicholas was a busy man, but he could spare 15 minutes that afternoon. But he did want to know what the meeting was going to be about. Apparently, Lisa had also gotten interested in church when the pastor came to her university. She decided to give it a try and has not looked back since. The priest then told Martha that they did not really need a meeting to discuss this more, as there was no more to tell. There was something the priest just said that immediately stood out to her as odd, but she did not want to confront him about it. She wanted to get to the bottom of this first, and so she thanked the priest for his time and hung up the phone. The university the priest named. Martha knew that Lisa did not go there and had never gone there. Had the priest just made a mistake? Something was going on, and both the priest and Lisa were clearly hiding something. And Martha was dead set on finding out what that was exactly. But she also realized that there was a good chance that nobody was going to be honest about this with her, and so she had to come up with a plan to find out the truth for herself. And with her very good knowledge of how the church operated, this plan was quickly crafted. For all the things Priest Nicholas was good at, it was widely known that he was not the best at taking confessions. By all accounts, he found it difficult to hear about everybody's indiscretion, mainly because he was very strict on his faith and could simply not forgive certain things. But this also meant that he kept the confession hours to a minimum. He only held them in the morning for 8, 9, and then he would walk away from the booth. Martha figured that if she was the last person to give a confession one morning, she could hide in the confession booth for hours on end without anybody coming in to check. This would give her an opportunity to spy on Nicholas, and hopefully on her granddaughter Lisa. It seemed like a foolproof plan, and so Martha put it in motion the very next day. And Martha's patience was about to be rewarded. But to her surprise, it was not Lisa who showed up at the church first. It was another woman, roughly the same age as her granddaughter. Nicholas came out of his office to greet her, and then they went inside. It only took 5 minutes tops, and then the woman left again, thanking the priest. Martha found the whole scene a bit strange, but it was nothing she was really worried about yet. But that feeling quickly changed when more young adults started showing up to the church to have these one-on-one meetings with Priest Nicholas. They were all eerily similar. They were greeted, went into the office for just 5 minutes, and then left again. Every 10 minutes, somebody else came through those doors like clockwork. And Martha recognized all of these people from the Sunday services. And then suddenly Lisa showed up, almost out of nowhere. And just like the others, Liz was greeted by Nicholas and they went into the office. But then Martha noticed that the door to the office was not fully closed. So she took a deep breath and decided to risk it. And what she bore witness to nearly broke the poor old women. She knew that most likely nobody was going to believe her, and thus she decided to record a video of it as evidence. Her hands were shaking, but as soon as she had shot the video, Martha quickly made her exit from the church. She had been completely shaken up by her discovery and did not know what to do with this information. But the more she thought about it, the clearer it became that she just needed to call the police. They had a hard time believing Martha's story at first, but when she sent the video, the officers knew that there was no way around the truth anymore. And so the officer quickly made their way to the church where Martha was still waiting. And just before the police arrived, another young adult had gotten into the church. When the police rushed to the office, they managed to catch the priest and the young man in the act and put handcuffs on both of them. They also did a quick search of his office and quickly gathered enough evidence to make a great case against this evil man. The priest was a drug dealer. He had been rounding up local youth in the area to sell his wares for him and give them a percentage of the profit. They were all making very good money with this, almost plummeting the city into an epidemic. But the police had not finally put a stop to it. They had been searching for the person who had been overflowing this town with contraband for years now, but had never even thought to look at the church for answers. And sadly, among those people was Martha's granddaughter, Lisa. Luckily, the people who were selling for Priest Nicholas were not given a jail sentence, but only a hefty fine and a lot of hours of community service. And this would end up doing a lot of good for Lisa. It gave her time to reflect on the error of her way, and she wanted to make improvements in her life now. She started making a lot of efforts to complete her school and tried to improve her bond with her family, even with her grandmother Martha, who had exposed her dark secret. With some time having passed, she was even able to thank Martha, as Lisa did not know where she would have ended up if her grandmother had not interfered.